The winter of 1944 cast long shadows across Europe. Inside Germany's high command, silence often replaced confidence, a silence born of men who sensed the war was slipping away. Among them stood Field Marshal Erich von Manstein, one of the Reich's most capable strategists. Long before the end became obvious, he warned of defeat. His arguments were not emotional, but grounded in arithmetic, logistics, manpower, and industrial strength. Why did a general admired for operational brilliance foresee collapse? What patterns did he recognize that others ignored? This story traces his rise, his forecasts, and the logic behind them. If you enjoy explorations of history told with care, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. More accounts of turning points await. Erich von Manstein, born in 1887 into a Prussian officer family, entered cadet school at an early age and absorbed the discipline of a professional military caste. In the First World War, he served as a junior officer and later as a staff officer. The trenches showed him how offensives collapsed when artillery support was mismanaged or when reserves arrived late. This habit of analyzing causes and effects stayed with him throughout his career. In the interwar Reichswehr, limited to 100,000 men, officers had to think more than fight. Manstein worked on war games and studies of mechanization. He contributed to debates on how tanks, aircraft, and radios could restore mobility to battlefields dominated by trench warfare. He was not a charismatic lecturer like Heinz Guderian, but a precise planner who thought through the details of coordination. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he treated doctrine as a science. Hypotheses were tested on paper, assumptions were re-examined, and every plan was adjusted for resources. By 1939, he had become Deputy Chief of Staff. During the planning for the invasion of France, he proposed concentrating armored divisions through the Ardennes, a risky but imaginative move. Initially rejected, the plan was eventually adopted and proved decisive. France collapsed in weeks, and Manstein was credited as one of the intellectual architects. Yet even in triumph, he warned privately that Germany's resource base was narrow, and a long war would expose the imbalance. This caution contrasted with the enthusiasm of many colleagues who believed that speed and surprise alone could sustain victory. In 1941, Manstein commanded the 56th Panzer Corps in the invasion of the Soviet Union. At first, his corps advanced rapidly, yet his reports repeatedly mentioned shortages. Fuel columns lagged, spare parts were missing, and infantry struggled to keep pace. He understood that strategy based on speed could falter if logistics failed to support it. After being wounded, he assumed command of the 11th Army in Crimea. The siege of Sevastopol consumed months and enormous ammunition stocks. It ended in German victory in July 1942, but the cost and delay convinced Manstein that campaigns of annihilation were no longer feasible. The wider map showed the danger, fronts stretching across thousands of kilometers, with thin reserves and fragile supply lines. His most severe test came with the Stalingrad crisis. Appointed to command Army Group Dawn, he devised Operation Winter Storm to relieve the encircled 6th Army. His plan relied on coordination with a breakout from inside. He calculated distances, Soviet reserves, and weather. Without a breakout, he warned, relief forces could not succeed. The breakout was forbidden, and the 6th Army surrendered in February 1943. To Manstein, This confirmed that Germany faced a war of attrition it could not win. He shifted his strategic emphasis to elastic defense, retreat when necessary, counterattack only when the enemy extended too far. This approach demanded mobility and trust in field commanders, qualities often undermined by political orders from above. In early 1943, Manstein showed what his method could achieve. Allowing Soviet forces to advance too far, he then counterattacked in March, retaking Kharkov. It was hailed as a brilliant maneuver and remains a case study in operational timing. Manstein himself warned that such successes only bought time. Germany could no longer replenish losses quickly enough, and each counterstroke consumed irreplaceable resources. That summer, attention turned to Operation Citadel at Kursk. Manstein favored an early assault, or none at all. As delays mounted, Soviet defenses deepened. Reconnaissance revealed belts of mines and artillery zones. His conclusion was stark. Probable losses outweighed possible gains. In July, the offensive failed to break through, while Allied landings in Sicily further diverted resources. Initiative on the Eastern Front passed irretrievably to the Soviets. After Kursk, Manstein pressed for withdrawing to the Dnieper and giving up exposed salients. He even recommended abandoning Crimea to preserve strength. Instead, orders from above demanded holding every position. His memoranda explained that this would immobilize forces and invite disaster. He stressed numbers. Too few aircraft, too little fuel, too many fronts. His clashes with Hitler grew sharper, for Manstein argued from logic while his superior spoke of prestige and political symbolism. In late 1943, Soviet crossings of the Dnieper created crises everywhere. Where Manstein was allowed to withdraw, fronts stabilized. Where forbidden, divisions were lost. In early 1944, during the Korsun encirclement, he organized relief and breakout, saving thousands. But again, the situation had developed exactly as he predicted. Inflexibility produced traps. On Crimea, he repeated his warnings. Delays turned a manageable retreat into chaos. In March 1944, he was dismissed from command. His final reports repeated the same triad: manpower, industry, and air superiority. Without these, the war could not be sustained. After the war, he was tried by a British tribunal, serving a reduced sentence. In the 1950s, he advised West German defense planners, stressing training and structure. His memoir, Lost Victories, presented his view of events, emphasizing operational logic and criticizing stand-fast policies. Though controversial for omissions, it shows that by 1942, he already foresaw collapse. Historians still debate how much his foresight reflected professional objectivity and how much was shaped by post-war hindsight. Yet even in wartime documents, the pattern of his warnings is clear. Germany's resources did not match its ambitions. To say that Manstein predicted defeat is to recognize his discipline in confronting reality. He calculated rail capacity, fuel deliveries, training cycles, and replacement rates. From these, he concluded that Germany could no longer sustain offensive warfare. His backhand blow was less a promise of victory than a strategy to delay defeat, to keep maneuver possible in a deteriorating situation. His case highlights the clash between political symbolism and military logic. Leaders insisted on holding every city. Manstein calculated that flexibility meant survival. Where he maneuvered freely, forces survived. Where rigidity prevailed, they were destroyed. His foresight was not prophecy, but analysis, a product of sober arithmetic. The lesson reaches beyond his era. Strategy must begin with an audit of resources. Ambitions unsupported by logistics collapse. Manstein's example warns against mistaking tactical brilliance for structural strength. Even the most gifted commander cannot escape the gravity of industry, manpower, and time. Today, his legacy remains debated, praised for operational skill, criticized for limited perspective. Yet his recognition of Germany's limits stands as a reminder. Wars are not decided by courage alone, but by the endurance of economies and societies. Leaders who ignore such arithmetic risk ruin. Those who confront it may at least preserve the possibility of recovery. For modern readers, the value lies not in glorifying or condemning, but in understanding method. Manstein shows how a professional officer analyzed a war that was slipping beyond his nation's means. His prediction of defeat, voiced years before it became obvious, was ultimately a reminder that no amount of determination can reverse the imbalance between ambition and capacity. If this account was meaningful, like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next exploration of history's turning points.